Angela Deem didn't just walk onto 90 Day Fiancé, she stormed in like a hurricane, and the cameras barely kept up. The first time she appeared, viewers were already divided. Some couldn't stop laughing at her over the top meltdowns. Others were horrified by how explosive she could be. But what made Angela unforgettable wasn't just her temper or her yelling, it was how unapologetically herself she was. Every single second. You've seen the clips, the screams, the tears, the moments where she seemed to teeter on the edge, daring the world to call her out. Who else could scream, cry, and throw drinks and still get a second season? That's right, you knew there was more chaos waiting every time she walked into a room. On screen, she was a force of nature, loud, brash, impossible to ignore. Fans either loved her or hated her, and some did both at the same time. Memes circulated faster than the episodes aired, each meltdown more viral than the last, and yet, behind the cameras, the story was a little different. Production insiders later claimed the cameras barely captured the real storm. Off-screen, crew members reportedly braced themselves, knowing that filming with Angela wasn't just challenging, it could be unpredictable. Scheduling problems, last-minute cancellations, and arguments that didn't make it to air were allegedly constant. She wasn't performing for TV, she was living her reality, raw and unfiltered. And somehow, it made for irresistible viewing. Michael, on the other hand, played a very different role. On camera, he looked quiet, maybe even timid, but behind the scenes, he was doing a lot of heavy lifting just to survive the daily chaos. Sources say he learned early on that arguing back only escalated the situation, so he adapted, keeping his head down, documenting interactions, and trying not to provoke the next storm. His silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy, and while fans often pointed fingers at him, claiming he was passive or manipulative, those close to production suggest he was navigating a minefield every single day, balancing Angela's explosive energy with the demands of filming a reality show that depended on drama to survive. It wasn't all screaming and panic. Angela's presence also brought something producers couldn't ignore: ratings. Every argument, every meltdown, every shocking outburst translated to clicks, views, and shares. That's why she kept coming back season after season. But there was a cost, one that viewers didn't see. Crew complaints, whispers of internal frustration, and subtle red flags started piling up. Rumors of erratic behavior outside of filming and tensions behind the scenes hinted at a bigger story that wasn't being told. Something more serious than audience outrage was simmering under the surface. Fans reacted in real time to everything they saw on screen, tweeting, posting, and debating endlessly. Every time Angela went off, the internet erupted. And while social media loved the chaos, production teams reportedly began to realize they were dealing with someone who couldn't always be contained. What started as entertaining controversy was edging closer to serious consequences, and for the first time, whispers of legal trouble and network liability started circulating quietly in corners of TLC offices. It was clear that Angela's presence was no longer just drama, it could be dangerous if left unchecked. The contrast between her on-screen antics and the behind-the-scenes reality created a tension that kept audiences hooked. On one hand, you had the outrageous, over-the-top reality TV star making headlines and memes. On the other, you had a network quietly juggling risk, a partner navigating survival, and crew members bracing for chaos. Every episode, every scene, added layers to the story. The stage was set for escalation, and anyone paying attention could sense that what viewers were laughing at might soon have much higher stakes. What most viewers didn't realize was that the chaos on screen was only the tip of the iceberg. Behind the cameras, production reportedly faced challenges that went far beyond routine filming problems. Crew members allegedly filed complaints about unpredictable behavior, scheduling disruptions, and tense interactions that forced shoots to pause or rearrange entirely. Sources have said that in some cases, production assistants refused to work alone with Angela, while security presence was quietly increased, not for fan control, but to protect the crew from potential confrontations. Every meltdown we saw on TV may have been just a fraction of what was happening off camera, and that gap between perception and reality is what made the situation so volatile. Fans thought they were watching dramatic arguments over minor misunderstandings, but insiders suggest there were patterns forming over years. Production reportedly began keeping detailed internal records, sometimes called the Angela Files, documenting incidents, complaints, and escalating tensions. These weren't fan rumors or viral social media exaggerations. They were operational notes meant to track risk. The network had to consider legal liability, crew safety, and how far they could push filming without crossing a line. That careful documentation hints at something many viewers might not have imagined. The person making headlines on TV was becoming a serious concern behind the scenes. Psychologically, volatility draws attention. Angela's unpredictability fueled ratings, turning every outburst into a meme, a trending clip, a moment people couldn't stop talking about. But that same unpredictability is a double-edged sword. The more extreme the behavior, the harder it becomes to manage, and the higher the risk of crossing lines that could affect others and even the network legally. That tension between public spectacle and behind-the-scenes danger created an invisible pressure cooker. Fans cheered the drama while the crew quietly managed an environment that sometimes felt unsafe. Michael's role grew more complex during this period. On camera, he remained calm, measured, and often the target of criticism. Behind the scenes, he reportedly worked to protect himself, documenting interactions, keeping careful records, and avoiding triggers that might provoke the next public explosion. His silence, misinterpreted as passivity, was actually a calculated way to survive. Every confrontation, every verbal tirade captured off camera, added to a growing sense that the situation was spiraling beyond a scripted reality show. The escalation didn't happen overnight. Each season seemed to push boundaries further. Early arguments, though intense, were contained within a framework of confessions and editing. But over time, crew members allegedly reported that her reactions became more erratic, less predictable, and sometimes dangerous. One season, production schedules reportedly had to be rearranged multiple times because her mood swings interfered with filming. Calls and meetings with producers were said to have ended abruptly, sometimes in shouting matches, making it clear that controlling the situation was increasingly difficult. Fans loved the on-screen drama, often missing the signals that things were moving past entertainment. The memes and viral clips didn't reflect the hours-long conflicts that might have never been broadcast. Every time we laughed at a meltdown or debated over who was right or wrong, production was quietly managing safety protocols, documenting incidents, and updating contracts to protect the network. It created a hidden narrative that the public never saw. Angela's volatility was being incentivized because it drew viewers, even as it increased real-world risk. As the seasons progressed, whispers about escalating off-camera issues began leaking subtly. Crew frustrations, reports of intimidation, and internal disagreements reportedly grew louder. Some insiders suggested that there were moments when filming had to stop entirely because tensions were too high. Angela's aggressive behavior wasn't a performance, it was part of a pattern that combined real emotions, personal stress, and the pressures of reality TV fame. Each scene we watched on TV was only one piece of a much larger puzzle, one that included legal exposure, network liability, and ongoing production headaches. And yet, this chaos was profitable. Ratings soared with every meltdown, every argument, every heated confrontation. Networks thrive on attention, and Angela's volatility provided it in spades, but profitability came with consequences. As the drama escalated, the cost of containment rose, creating a ticking time bomb scenario. Every crew complaint, every delayed shoot, every warning signal added to the tension. What viewers thought was entertainment was increasingly a management challenge behind the cameras. Michael's quiet preparation became more crucial with every incident. Sources claim he carefully documented timelines, conversations, and behavior, not for revenge, but for self-preservation. Every interaction that seemed small or inconsequential on TV could potentially become critical evidence if conflicts spiraled out of control. This behind-the-scenes preparation contrasted sharply with fan perception. People laughed at Angela, debated over Michael, and judged arguments as reality show drama, unaware that the real story was far more complicated and serious. The pattern of escalation reached a point where the network could no longer ignore it. Internal documents reportedly tracked months, sometimes years, of incidents, from delayed shoots to verbal threats to moments that production staff described as genuinely unsafe. Each meltdown we saw on TV, as shocking as it was part of a much larger, uncontrolled pattern. Fans had been watching a curated version of events, unaware that what they thought was outrageous behavior was only the surface of a growing behind-the-scenes storm. It's a strange contrast. On one hand, viewers reveled in the drama, celebrated the chaos, and turned Angela into a reality TV icon. On the other, production had to balance safety, legal risk, and liability while keeping the cameras rolling. That balance was delicate, and sources suggest it was fraying. Each season, the stakes grew higher, and the consequences, both on camera and behind the scenes, became impossible to ignore. By the time the public caught wind of escalating issues, the groundwork for major fallout had already been laid. Crew reports, internal records, and the careful navigation by Michael hinted at what could happen if volatility continued unchecked. The on-screen arguments, the memes, and the viral moments were only one side of the story. Off-camera, there were documents, whispered concerns, and growing anxiety that the explosive behavior could one day reach a tipping point. That tipping point would change everything for Angela, Michael, and the network. Angela Deem's reputation didn't just grow on television, it exploded on social media. Every scream, every argument, every outrageous meltdown became fuel for online chatter. Fans shared clips endlessly, created memes, and debated endlessly about who was right and who was wrong. Some viewers couldn't get enough, laughing at the chaos as if it were a sport, while others were horrified, saying things had gone too far. The reactions were intense, polarized, and relentless. The internet loved drama, and Angela delivered it season after season. But behind the laughter and the memes, the story was far more complicated. Advocacy groups began to take notice. Clips of yelling, threats, and emotional intimidation circulated online, and questions about ethical responsibility started surfacing. Some organizations pointed out that what was framed as entertainment could be seen as emotional abuse. While TLC profited from the drama, critics argued that the network had a duty to protect cast members and crew from escalating conflicts. Fans might have been laughing at one moment, but off-screen, the production team was reportedly documenting each incident, noting risks, and preparing in case situations spiraled out of control. This wasn't just a reality TV headache, it was a growing ethical dilemma. Michael's role became even more remarkable in this context. To viewers, he might have appeared quiet or disengaged, even passive. Behind the scenes, however, he was meticulously navigating an unpredictable environment. Sources suggest he documented incidents, kept careful timelines, and preserved evidence, not to discredit Angela, but to protect himself. Each outburst, each confrontation, became another piece of a complicated puzzle that Michael had to manage just to survive the day. Fans assumed silence meant weakness. In reality, it may have been the only way to maintain safety while staying in a relationship marked by fear, unpredictability, and high emotional stakes. Would you stay in a relationship where fear was constant, where every conversation could explode into a confrontation? Michael's situation forces viewers to ask that question. The moments we saw on TV, condensed and edited for dramatic effect, were only snapshots of what insiders say was a far more intense reality. Long arguments, emotional threats, and the constant pressure of public attention reportedly created an environment where survival meant disengaging, documenting, and waiting for the storm to pass. It's not glamorous, it's not funny, and it's far from the memes that dominated timelines. Fans debated endlessly online. Some argued that Angela was the star the show needed to survive, bringing ratings and viral moments that no one else could. Others criticized her behavior, saying it crossed boundaries that should have been respected. Social media became a battleground of opinion, but most people weren't aware of the production challenges happening behind the scenes. What looked like outrageous, entertaining drama was part of a much larger, ongoing pattern that included safety concerns, crew complaints, and network calculations about liability. Over time, the combination of public fascination and internal concern created a perfect storm. Fans continued to share every viral clip, unknowingly amplifying the behaviors that were causing real tension behind the cameras. Meanwhile, TLC reportedly had to weigh the cost of continuing to feature Angela. Her volatility drew viewers, but it also increased operational challenges and legal risk. Every on-screen meltdown could be mirrored by hours-long confrontations off-camera that no one ever saw. The stakes were escalating, and sources indicate that network executives were quietly preparing for what they feared might be inevitable, a tipping point that could no longer be managed through editing or public spin. Michael's careful documentation became a crucial part of this invisible narrative. He reportedly kept records of texts, calls, and incidents not to expose Angela, but to ensure he had a safety net if situations escalated legally or emotionally. While fans debated who was right or wrong on Twitter, Michael was preparing for consequences that extended far beyond social media outrage. His behind-the-scenes strategy contrasts sharply with the fan perception of him as passive, highlighting the gap between what viewers saw and what insiders say was happening in real life. Fan reactions over the years also revealed an emotional paradox. Many cheered the drama while simultaneously expressing concern for Michael, questioning why he stayed or why he didn't fight back. Others were angry at the network for allowing the situations to continue. Social media turned into a forum for debate over responsibility, agency, and accountability. But what remained invisible to the public was how carefully the network and production had to manage risk every day. Each viral clip of Angela screaming or confronting Michael had layers of consequences that fans could not see. The planning, the documentation, and the fear that anything could escalate beyond control. Even the most outrageous moments on TV were, according to insiders, part of a much larger story of escalating volatility. Crew members reportedly had to step in at times to prevent physical altercations, while filming schedules were disrupted repeatedly. Some staff allegedly refused to work on certain shoots, requesting reassignment to avoid potential danger. These details remained unseen, but they shaped every interaction Angela had with the show. The public saw viral moments. Production saw patterns of behavior that were increasingly unpredictable and difficult to manage. Every meltdown added tension, both for the people on camera and the network behind it. Fans might have thought Angela's behavior was part of the character she played, a dramatic force created for entertainment. In reality, insiders suggest that her volatility was real, continuous, and growing over time. The contrast between public perception and production reality created a suspense that made every episode feel bigger than it actually was. leaving viewers on edge, unsure of what might happen next, and the tipping point was coming. For years, the network tolerated the chaos because it drew attention, drove ratings, and kept viewers talking. But the combination of off-camera concerns, documented incidents, and public scrutiny reportedly created an environment that could no longer be managed. Michael's careful preparation, the crew's behind-the-scenes challenges, and the network's internal calculations all pointed toward an inevitable escalation. The viral moments, the memes, and the online debates were leading somewhere bigger, a moment when the pattern of unchecked volatility could no longer be ignored. Fans had been laughing, debating, and sharing every outrageous scene, but the reality behind the cameras painted a different picture. A star whose behavior was becoming increasingly dangerous, a partner silently protecting himself, and a network quietly documenting risks. Every on-screen meltdown was part of a much larger, uncontrolled pattern. The escalation wasn't just entertainment anymore. It was a ticking time bomb, waiting for the moment that would change everything. The public fascination, the fan outrage, the memes, and the debates were all building toward a final confrontation between celebrity, consequence, and accountability. Each viral clip, each social media debate, and each behind-the-scenes document suggested that something serious was on the horizon. The drama fans saw was only a fraction of what insiders were dealing with, and the alleged arrest that later shocked the 90-Day Fiancé universe was reportedly the culmination of years of unchecked chaos and escalating volatility. Would fans have stayed engaged if they had seen the full story, the hours of tension, the fear, and the planning that went into managing a star like Angela? Probably not in the same way, but it does show how powerful perception is. On-screen, she was unforgettable. Off-screen, the cost of that fame was piling up, quietly, relentlessly, and without fan awareness. Michael, the silent partner, emerged as a key figure in maintaining balance and ensuring that reality didn't spiral entirely out of control. The frenzy on social media amplified her presence, while also raising questions about ethics and responsibility. The applause for drama often came with ignorance of risk. Every argument, every threat, every viral clip was a microcosm of a much larger story that involved legal risk, crew safety, and personal survival. The more outrageous the behavior, the harder it became to ignore, and the closer the situation moved toward its ultimate breaking point. By the end of this act, the stage was set. Fans had reacted, advocates had raised concerns, Michael had prepared for the worst, and the network had documented years of incidents in anticipation of what insiders feared most. The escalation, the documentation, and the unseen chaos were all converging. The viral moments that everyone shared online were the surface. Beneath them was a story of survival, preparation, and the consequences of volatility left unchecked. A story that was about to reach its tipping point in a way no meme or clip could capture. The moment news of Angela's alleged arrest hit, the world paused. TLC didn't issue a statement. No denial, no defense, no carefully worded promise to review the situation. Just silence. And that silence spoke volumes. For someone whose fame had been built on being impossible to ignore, suddenly being removed from the spotlight must have felt surreal. Without the network controlling the narrative, Angela was exposed to the full weight of consequence for the first time. Sponsors reportedly pulled out, appearances were canceled, and the social media storm turned from entertainment into scrutiny. The platform that had amplified her voice for years disappeared almost overnight. Her empire, built on audacious meltdowns and viral moments, began collapsing in real time. Fans who once celebrated her confrontations started to question their support. Some stuck by her, loyal and defiant, but the broader reality became clear. Without the backing of the network, every action carried tangible consequences. Posts that once trended for humor now risked backlash. Every live stream, every post, every public appearance carried potential legal and reputational risk. Angela, once the uncontested queen of ratings, now faced isolation and vulnerability. Psychologically, this is a moment that can hit hard. Fame can create the illusion of invincibility. When the cameras are rolling, the editing room is on your side, and fans cheer for chaos, accountability becomes a distant concept. But when the safety net disappears, the reality is unrelenting. Insiders suggest that for someone like Angela, whose identity was tied so deeply to confrontation and attention, this shift must have been jarring. Panic and defiance reportedly alternated in her public behavior, posting, deleting, reposting, then withdrawing entirely. Without a controlled narrative, she had to face the consequences of actions that previously seemed shielded by ratings and network protection. Michael's role in this phase becomes even more pivotal. Sources claim he had long prepared for the eventual fallout, quietly documenting patterns, conversations, and interactions. What the audience may have interpreted as disengagement was strategic foresight. While Angela's public influence waned, Michael maintained control of the narrative in a subtle way, ensuring that if legal or personal disputes arose, he had a record. His careful preparation underscores the contrast between the chaos of Angela's public persona and the meticulous strategy behind the scenes. Even as consequences mounted, it's fair to note Angela's impact. Her ability to dominate a franchise, drive social media engagement, and create cultural touchpoints is undeniable. Viral moments, memes, and fan debates are a testament to her influence. Some fans continued to defend her, citing loyalty and admiration for her audacity and unfiltered presence. Her imprint on reality TV cannot be erased, even as the structures that once protected her crumble. The tension here is complex: public fascination versus real-world accountability. The alleged arrest may be just the beginning. With the network distancing itself, previously protected behavior may come under closer examination. Legal ramifications, while not detailed publicly, could extend beyond a single incident. Insiders hint that the documentation accumulated over years could be relevant if authorities review the situation. What fans saw as entertainment may now be reframed as a series of escalating events with tangible consequences. Every viral meltdown, every off-camera dispute, every documented incident contributes to a larger picture that Angela can no longer control. Fame's protective bubble doesn't last forever. What worked on television, outbursts, confrontations, emotional volatility, becomes dangerous when removed from the context of production management. Insiders suggest that the collapse of her public persona forced a stark confrontation with accountability. Fans who once cheered her audacity were confronted with the reality that her actions, unchecked for years, had consequences that ratings alone could no longer shield. It's a reminder that influence and attention cannot replace responsibility. Some fans remained supportive, highlighting Angela's loyalty to Michael, her willingness to confront situations head-on, and her ability to command attention. These perspectives create a nuanced picture. She wasn't universally vilified, and her charisma and presence had undeniable value in shaping reality TV narratives. Yet even with defenders, the structures that once amplified her power, TLC, sponsorships, social media traction, were no longer operating in her favor. The collapse, insiders say, was swift, and the emotional toll intense. The psychological effect of such a fall is profound. Angela reportedly oscillated between rage and panic, struggling to maintain control in the absence of a safety net. The protective layer of editing, fan support, and network defense that had cushioned her volatility vanished. Without those buffers, her behavior was exposed to scrutiny and consequence, creating both personal and professional vulnerability. This is a universal lesson in the psychology of fame. Without structures that protect you, Unchecked behavior, no matter how entertaining, carries real-world risk. Meanwhile, Michael's careful documentation and quiet strategy highlight an important counterpoint. While Angela faced immediate fallout, he preserved leverage and safety. His foresight emphasizes that survival in a high-stakes, volatile environment often requires restraint, planning, and awareness, qualities the audience may have overlooked amid the chaos on screen. The dynamic shifts, with Angela confronting isolation and Michael quietly holding agency. Fans watching the social media fallout saw a mix of shock, relief, and continued debate. Many expressed that the removal of Angela was overdue, a long-awaited reckoning. Others questioned how much responsibility the network bore for years of escalating behavior. Social media became both a courtroom and a commentary section, dissecting her actions, the network's decisions, and Michael's role in maintaining equilibrium. The conversation reflected the larger cultural discussion around accountability in entertainment. As the dust settled, it became clear that the consequences of unchecked behavior in reality TV extend far beyond viral moments. Angela's fall illustrates the fragile balance between fame and accountability. Her influence remains, but the platforms and protections that sustained it are gone. What remains is a story of visibility, volatility, and the eventual cost of actions left unchecked. And even with this dramatic shift, insiders suggest that what the public sees might not be the full extent. Legal processes, potential investigations, and the long-term implications of documented incidents may continue to unfold. The alleged arrest could mark only the beginning of consequences for Angela, with ripple effects extending through networks, sponsorships, and public perception. Fans are left to speculate, discuss, and debate, while the full story continues to evolve behind the scenes. Angela Deem's saga is a cautionary tale. Fame can amplify influence, but it can also delay accountability until the safety net disappears. Viral moments, audience attention, and network protection can mask the consequences of behavior for years. Yet, when those structures fall away, the reality becomes stark and inescapable. The collapse is not just professional, it's deeply personal, emotional, and revealing about the human cost of living in the spotlight. The story also forces reflection on the role of networks, fans, and public perception. TLC's silence, the withdrawal of sponsors, and the diminished public reach show how fragile fame is when it depends on external structures. The tension between public fascination and behind-the-scenes reality underscores the stakes that reality TV stars face when volatility intersects with visibility. Angela's experience highlights how quickly influence can shift to consequence. Even as her presence diminishes, her impact on reality television remains. The memes, viral clips, and debates she inspired will continue to circulate, shaping how audiences view conflict, drama, and personality in reality TV. Yet the personal consequences, loss of platform, public scrutiny, and potential legal challenges offer a sobering reminder that entertainment value does not exempt anyone from accountability. Angela's story is not just a tale of controversy, it's a lesson in power, consequence, and the limits of control. Fame offered protection and influence for years, but it could not shield her indefinitely. The safety net is gone, and what follows may be far-reaching. Michael's strategic foresight, fan reactions, and network decisions all intersected to create a moment where the drama of the past finally met the realities of accountability. The collapse is ongoing. The silence of the network, the drying up of sponsorships, and the scrutiny of fans signal that the consequences have only just begun. Viral moments that once entertained are now a record of a larger pattern of behavior, and insiders indicate that Angela will have to face repercussions she could no longer control. The story that played out on television is only a fraction of the truth. As viewers, it's hard not to feel the weight of it all. Angela's fall is dramatic, yes, but it's also human. It shows the cost of living a life constantly under scrutiny, of behavior left unchecked, and of fame that masks accountability. And while some may continue to defend her audacity or charisma, the structures that once protected her are gone, leaving only consequences, reflection, and uncertainty about what comes next. The tipping point has passed, but the story is far from over. Every fan reaction, every social media debate, and every behind-the-scenes document points toward more revelations, more discussions, and potentially more consequences in the near future. What happened to Angela Deem serves as both a cultural touchstone and a cautionary tale, a reminder that volatility, attention, and fame can create a spectacular rise, but the fall can arrive just as dramatically. After years of chaos, viral moments, and headlines, Angela Deem's story on 90 Day Fiancé comes full circle, at least for now. She rose as a breakout star, a force who dominated every scene she entered. Fans laughed, cringed, and sometimes cheered as she screamed, cried, and humiliated Michael on camera. Her presence was impossible to ignore. Yet behind the glossy, dramatic footage, a different reality was unfolding. The off-camera tensions, the safety concerns, the production headaches, they tell a story of a career built on volatility, but balanced precariously on a network's willingness to manage risk, and that balance eventually tipped. The fallout after the alleged arrest has been swift and public. Sponsorships evaporated. Appearances vanished. Social media that once amplified her chaos now magnified scrutiny. Angela's influence, once a source of power, became a reminder of what happens when fame and accountability collide. For a star who thrived on attention, the sudden silence must have been disorienting. Fans loyal to her audacity were left debating what responsibility lay with the network, what with Michael, and what with Angela herself. The narrative that once entertained became a cautionary tale. Michael's role emerges here in stark relief. While Angela's empire crumbled, he quietly documented interactions, tracked events, and maintained leverage. What appeared on screen as silence or passivity may have been strategic self-preservation. Sources suggest he prepared for the eventual fallout, keeping evidence that could clarify the story if legal or personal questions arose. His approach contrasts with the explosive, unpredictable energy Angela displayed for years. It's a reminder that in volatile situations, control doesn't always look like action. Sometimes it's measured patience and foresight. Looking at Angela's arc, it's impossible to ignore her impact. She reshaped the franchise, became a cultural reference point, and created moments that will be discussed for years. Viral memes, heated fan debates, and social media frenzy all speak to her influence. Some fans continue to defend her, highlighting loyalty, courage to confront issues directly, and the unique energy she brought to reality TV. Yet influence has limits. When protection from networks, sponsors, and controlled editing disappears, even the most dominant personality must face consequences. Her fall raises broader questions about reality television itself. How much responsibility does a network carry when it exploits volatility for ratings? Where does accountability begin for a star whose fame is built on chaos? Fans may have cheered Angela's meltdowns, but the unseen costs, emotional, professional, and potentially legal, show that entertainment value cannot erase real-world repercussions. The structure that once shielded her is gone, leaving a vivid example of how quickly fame can shift to consequence. The story also leaves space for reflection on human behavior under pressure. Angela's volatility, combined with years of public attention, produced moments that were both captivating and dangerous. Her actions were amplified by the cameras, the editing, and the social media echo chamber. Without those factors, the raw consequences became apparent, exposing the fragility of a career built on spectacle. It's a cautionary lesson in the psychology of fame. Attention can empower, but it can also mask risk until the moment it's gone. As the dust settles, speculation begins about what comes next. Will Angela recover her public image, or is the damage irreversible? Some argue that her charisma and notoriety could allow for a comeback, but the structures that once supported her success, network backing, audience attention, and sponsorships, may never return fully. Michael's documented foresight could play a pivotal role if parts of the story are clarified publicly. The question of truth, perspective, and long-term accountability remains wide open, leaving fans and observers alike wondering what revelations might surface. Social media continues to buzz, with fans debating every aspect of Angela's rise and fall. Some see her as a cautionary tale about unchecked behavior and network complicity. Others focus on her resilience and ability to command attention under any circumstances. The dialogue is complex, highlighting how reality TV blurs the line between entertainment and real-life consequences. Every new clip, repost, or discussion serves as a reminder that the story is far from over. The alleged arrest, the silence of TLC, and the collapse of Angela's empire are dramatic enough on their own. Yet insiders suggest this may just be the beginning. Documentation accumulated over years, off-camera incidents, crew reports, messages, timelines, could continue to influence public perception and legal outcomes. For fans who assumed they had seen all of Angela's chaos, the reality may be far more layered and consequential. The unfolding events keep the audience invested, balancing suspense with curiosity about what comes next. This final phase of Angela's story also highlights the fragility of power built on spectacle. Her ability to dominate a franchise depended on multiple moving parts: the network's willingness to manage risk, fan engagement, and her own relentless energy. Once any of those elements faltered, the consequences became immediate. Fame, influence, and visibility can be temporary if the structures supporting them are withdrawn. Angela's experience underscores how quickly a career can pivot from peak to peril. The story also poses important questions for the audience. Would you stay in a situation where fear or chaos was constant? How much of what we see on reality TV is manufactured, and how much reflects real danger or emotional stress? Do fans truly understand the pressures stars face when their actions are amplified, edited, and broadcast worldwide? These questions encourage reflection and engagement, keeping viewers emotionally invested in the narrative. Looking forward, there are hints that more revelations could surface. Other cast members, previously overshadowed by Angela's presence, may now emerge with stories that shed additional light on the behind-the-scenes dynamics. Social media chatter, insider reports, and fan speculation suggest that the network's quiet handling of this situation may not be the end of drama within the franchise. The potential for further exposure, clarifications, or disputes keeps the story alive and audience attention high. Angela's journey reminds us that reality TV is a high-stakes arena where behavior, perception, and consequence intersect. The volatility that made her a star also created vulnerability. The same actions that drew attention and engagement now carry weight that cannot be ignored. Fans, networks, and the stars themselves are all participants in a system where entertainment and accountability coexist in tension, often unpredictably. As this chapter closes, the question remains: could Angela reclaim her place in the public eye? Or is this the start of a permanent shift in perception? Michael's careful documentation hints that some truths may yet emerge, potentially reframing the narrative that fans have followed for years. The intersection of public image, legal consequence, and personal strategy keeps the story compelling and unpredictable. And while Angela's saga dominates headlines, it also sets the stage for other explosive developments in the franchise. With volatility, loyalty, and network pressures as constants, who will rise next? Which cast members are hiding untold stories that could shake the show? The stage is set for more drama, revelations, and moments that challenge fan assumptions. Angela Deem's story, from breakout star to viral icon to facing real-world consequences, leaves a lasting mark on reality TV. It's a tale of charisma and chaos, influence and accountability, and the unpredictable consequences when the two collide. Fans will continue to debate, analyze, and react, while the behind-the-scenes dynamics suggest that the franchise is far from done revealing its secrets. So, as we watch the aftermath unfold, the biggest question lingers: what happens when the next explosive cast member faces the spotlight without the same protections Angela had? Will history repeat itself? Or will the franchise and the stars adapt to a world where volatility comes with clear consequences? The answer is still out there, waiting to shock, surprise, and captivate everyone who thought they had seen it all.